Thanks, Matt. Tonight on the Fox Files, we're discussing domestic abuse and victims' rights. The phone number is 478-741-5510, so get dialing, and we'll see you after the break.
Now, Fox 24 News presents your only live connection to the newsmakers of Middle Georgia. Live from the Fox 24 studios, it's the Fox Files with Alexia Ridley.
Hello and welcome to the Fox Files. Tonight we're answering your questions about domestic abuse and victims' rights. Our phone number is 478-741-5510, and we'll get to your calls in a moment. But first, let's meet tonight's guests. On the show tonight is Jason Ashford, who is the Chief Assistant District Attorney in Houston County. It's always good to have you on the show, Jason.
Always a pleasure.
You're doing a lot. Obviously, you do handle domestic violence cases in Houston County. There's always something new going on with you guys. Anything in particular that you want to get out to the viewers?
Sure. The beginning of July is the start of the new fiscal year, but it's also the start of many new laws that go into the books. The legislature has done some good things, we think, with some of the criminal statutes. The child molestation statute has been changed now to allow for electronic transmission of materials to affect child molestation, so none of those people can be charged with child molestation through electronic means. Also, victims' rights have been expanded to allow victims to testify on video, and that way it kind of helps them to avoid the trauma of having to testify in person.
That's kind of a big step, it seems like, to not have to be there in court when you're facing your abuser.
It is. It's a very big thing, and allows the courts to take in all the factors that go into a proper sentence. And so hearing the victims and hearing what they have to say goes a long way to getting a sentence that the state wants and what we want.
Is that particularly effective, I guess, for children?
It can be. Children obviously are more sensitive to having to testify. The statute, though, does have the requirement that they be subject to cross-examination. So that it doesn't completely eliminate the need to have to come to court, but it helps. It does help.
So they can give their testimony on video, but they do have to be there because obviously the accused has a right to...
Right. Now, understand that this is victim impact testimony.
Oh, okay.
This is not testimony, say, in a court of law.
In a court of law, they are there in person.
That's right. They generally have to be there in person. There's some exceptions to that with children, child hearsay, but for the most part, they generally have to be in court and be subject to cross-examination.
So for a prosecutor like yourself, how important do you think a victim's impact statement is?
It's critical, really, for getting the kind of sentence and getting the judge to understand what kind of impact this particular crime has had on the victim and on the immediate family. So we think it's very important, and even just from a perspective of just getting the victim's testimony out there and what they want out there to the court, it really goes a long way to providing closure to the victim.
Right. So there are a lot of changes today, and if you were an advocate of victims' rights, this was a good day for you.
It is. We've still got a lot of work to do, but we're very pleased that the legislature has made these changes. So.
Okay. Well, we are going to take a quick break right now, but stay with us. The Fox Files will be right back. We'll start taking your phone calls. Plus, we'll have another look at today's news and weather. Thanks, Eddie. Jason, we'll go ahead and start taking some calls, and we'll take Donna first. Hi, Donna. What's your question for Jason? Donna, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes. What's your question or comment?
It's just a comment, really. I mean, I'm a big believer in advocating help for those who are abused, whether children, females, couples. And I just want to make sure that, women usually are the ones that people think of in domestic violence abuse, relationships. But men need to be allowed, brought up to light. There are men who are in domestic violence that don't get heard of, or you know what I mean? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? They're not being, what am I thinking? Being as vocal as women when it comes to saying, yes, my wife is abusing me.
Right.
Or, and I just wanted to, bring that point out, too, that it's kind of stereotyping just women in domestic violence. Men are out there, too, that are getting hurt.
Well, thank you for the comment, Tabitha. And Jason, you have said before that there, of course, are men who are victimized by it, but usually the women suffer more harsh consequences.
Sure, and that's just because of the physical nature of men versus women. But the caller is absolutely right. Men are abused, and the biggest concern for us is it's probably hugely underreported, because no man's going to want to admit to being abused by their wife or their girlfriend. So clearly that's a big deal, and once it becomes less stigmatized, maybe people, men in particular, will be more willing to come forward.
Right. Well, thank you for the call, Donna. We're going to move on to Tabitha now. Hi, Tabitha. What's your question?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Tabitha.
Yes, I'm not really too knowledgeable about court and everything, but I wanted to know if there was a child that was involved in a situation, I don't know, I guess not really a victim, but possibly a victim because they saw the incident occur. Is it possible that a family member can, I guess with this new thing that passed, is it possible a family member can just request that they record the video of the child and what they saw, or do they have to, like, tape record it, or do they have to go on video camera?
Okay, thanks, Tabitha.
The way it works is with children, we do forensic interviews. And the idea behind a forensic interview is that the child is interviewed in a child-friendly kind of environment, and it is a non-leading kind of a questioning, so that the child is able to say what happened in their own voice. We've done forensic interviews with children as young as 4, 5 years old, and they're very effective, very powerful. The child still needs to be available to testify if necessary, but when we have that video of the child testifying about what they saw and what they heard, it's very powerful for a jury, and it goes a long way to being able to find out what really happened.
Thank you, Tabitha. We interviewed you earlier, Jason. We're going to just from that story a little bit more about the victims' rights aspect of this. I know that they're having some changes, and let's just take a look at the story from earlier today, and then we'll have you comment on changes again. Let's go ahead and roll that story.
Dozens of legislative measures take effect July 1st, including 2 laws that strengthen the rights of crime victims in Georgia. Senate Bill 172 deals with victim compensation and provides recovery for victims of serious mental or emotional trauma. Julie Steele is executive director of Crisis Line and Safe House. She says this new law is important because mental trauma can last long after physical wounds heal, especially for victims of child abuse or sexual assault.
For both the validation that it gives to those victims of the trauma that they have endured, which may not manifest itself as a physical symptom, so that they have the ability now to seek counseling.
Senate Bill 151 will let crime victims, their families, and interested witnesses provide greater input in court or during parole board hearings. House and County District Attorney Jason Ashford says under this law, victims can also provide testimony on video instead of in person at court.
Hopefully it'll put victims a little bit more at ease and eliminate the re-victimization that they suffer at the hands of having to tell their story and have to go to court and be subject to that kind of intense scrutiny and pressure.
Victim advocates say these 2 new pieces of legislation show progress and that they hope legislators continue to strengthen the rights of all crime victims. Reporting from the newsroom, Lynn Bowie, Fox 24.
So, Jason, I know that you wanted to address another change regarding compensation. That was touched on in the story.
It was, and now victims are able to apply for victims' compensation for emotional trauma in addition to just physical trauma. So that's a nice change in the law.
That's a big difference. I know a lot of times victims, they suffer post-traumatic stress disorder, all sorts of things. So this could be pretty major.
And obviously the emotional trauma that they have to experience has to be very severe, has to be so debilitating that it affects their quality of life in such a way that it's very serious.
All right, thanks, Jason. We're going to have to take another break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Fox Files. Tonight we're discussing domestic violence and victims' rights with Jason Ashford with the House and County DA's office. And we're going to go back to the phone lines and take Claudia. Hi, Claudia. How are you this evening?
Hi.
Go ahead, Claudia.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Sorry, I just asked how you were tonight.
I'm good. How about you guys?
We're great.
Great.
Thanks, Claudia.
I like this idea where a victim does not have to be in a courtroom because that can be very intimidating because some of, to be there in front of the person who, abused a victim, often the victim will not testify because they know they have to face, the abuser again. And I like that the government is finally seeing the benefits of having the victim outside the courtroom to testify and tell what happened. I think this is a great start.
Claudia, I have to say that was my misunderstanding. I misunderstood it. I thought that the victims could testify on video, but I was mistaken. Jason.
Well, there is a provision for victims to be able to testify on video through like two-way cameras and things like that. But part of our job as prosecutors is to make the victim able to come to court and be able to testify and be able to give testimony under cross-examination. So what we're talking about, though, right now is victim impact, which is part of the sentencing phase of the trial and the changes that have been affected through that. But again, our job is to try to make the victim be able to testify at court, and that's usually what's required still, even with these changes in law.
Thank you for calling, Claudia. We're going to move on to Jackie. Hi, Jackie. What's your question?
Hi. Yes, I had a question. My question was that listening to what you all was discussing, saying that you would have to be pretty much traumatized in order to be compensated for the abuse that your spouse or mate have caused. My question was, is the only way that you can be compensated for that is do you sue the abuser and take them to court in such a way to be compensated?
Well, thanks for calling, Jackie.
You certainly can. You certainly can sue your abuser for emotional distress. But again, I'm not a civil attorney. I'm strictly a criminal prosecutor. But those options are still available to you. This just expands the right of a victim to seek compensation through the Victims' Compensation Fund for emotional injury.
Okay, so this is something different, Jackie. You don't have to necessarily sue. You go through Victims' Compensation?
Correct, and our office helps the victims to go through that paperwork.
So basically, they come to you or the DA in their county and say they want some help with victims' compensation.
And you don't need to retain an attorney or anything like that, which is what you would have to do in order to sue the abuser. You need to retain an attorney. So this way, you don't have to retain an attorney. We do basically the work for you.
You come in and have attorneys for the state basically come in and help you.
Exactly. We're your attorney.
That makes the process a lot easier for people because it's a little complicated. And what if you can't afford an attorney?
Right, exactly. And we deal with a lot of low-income people who are victims, and we found it's a great help for them.
So, Jason, how do you go about? I know this is new, so you can't know because you haven't had to deal with it yet. But how would a person go about having access to this, receiving compensation? It's so new. Do they have to have a really airtight case? Or, I mean, obviously, if they're victims, then somebody's already been found guilty, I'm assuming.
Right. Well, the Victims' Compensation Fund is not new. This is just giving a different access to that fund. So we do that normally. We do it pretty regularly. It's not something that we don't do every day. So.
That's not new, but the idea that you can get it for emotional distress.
Right. And usually there are physical injuries as well, but it does provide for strictly emotional injuries to be able to be compensated for.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Thank you, Jackie. I had to ask a lot of questions after Jackie's call. I appreciate the question, Jackie. If you'd like to contact Jason, you can reach him by email, which is ashford@houstonda.org, or you can call him at 478-218-4810. Once again, that's email ashford@houstonda.org, phone number 478-218-4810. That's it for tonight's Fox Files. Please tune in next time. For Jason Ashford, I'm Alexia Ridley. Thanks for watching Fox 24 News at 10. Good night, everyone.